Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Between Two Studs. I'm Alex Stud.
And I'm Ron Stud.
And Ron, episode 34. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very good. So I see we're both wearing jerseys, right? What's going on?
It's like when we're recording this, there's something going on today.
There's a playoff game, right? That's it.
Hopefully by the time this episode airs, the Bills will They'll be Super Bowl champions, right?
I'm a little nervous saying that. I don't want to jinx us.
If we time that correctly, otherwise, whatever. We're still honoring our team.
That's right.
So anyway, tonight we have a special guest, let me make sure I understand this, former Delawarean, former Coloradoan, and current Floridian, Alli Serencko. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Very good. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. I appreciate you reaching out to me. This is awesome.
Absolutely. So, Ron, before we get into the Amber Round, where we get to know the guest a little bit more, you and I need to take a toast in honor of our official sponsor, Malort. And this is cheers to you, Alli, for being such a great guest.
Cheers, Alli.
Thanks so
Cheers.
much.
All right, so, Alli, the first thing we do, we get into what we call the Amber Round. It's just a good way to get to know you, what's your backstory, what's going on, and sort of like a lightning round, but we don't want to call it that because sometimes it gets into really interesting conversations where it's not really that quick. So let's jump right into it. How do you know us? How do you know me? What's the story?
Yeah, so I know you, Alex, from high school. We went to high school in Delaware together many years ago now at this point. It's insane that it's been over 10 years since we graduated. It just blows my mind that it's been so long.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's funny, we were both on the music side of the building because you were really in the chorus and I was really in the band. So I felt like we ran into each other a lot. And then funny enough, Ron, who's 8 years older than me, also graduated from Middletown. And if I remember, Ron, you spent a lot of time in the chorus room, not because you were in chorus, but because you were in theater. Did a lot of the musicals, right?
That's right. Dr. Perrine, if you had her, was awesome. She is such a cool person. And actually, I did do a little bit of singing because I found out there was a cruise that I could go on if I did some singing. And I was like, if you need an extra baritone. And she's like, absolutely. So I ended up doing that, even though I didn't do chorus. But I love the team there. They did a great job. So
That's incredible. I love Vonnie. She's a woman of my own heart. I miss her so much.
Yeah.
We all called her Mom.
Absolutely.
And funny enough, I ended up going on one of those cruises too. Years later, I went on the cruise too. So it was a lot of fun.
Quick side story about her, just to show how cool she is. So there was this day I was in this directing class with her, and she actually wasn't there, and it was the last class of the day, right? Anyway, surprisingly enough, you had a bunch of people in this directing class, so there was a little bit of drama, and people started fighting, and I said, I'm going to get out of here, and we're just going to go over to the McDonald's when that was the only thing Middletown had. So a friend and I did that.
Hey, don't forget about that Waffle House. That's been an institution for years.
Yeah, okay. But that's true. So anyway, the next day, all of a sudden, Vonnie, she approaches me in the hall. She's like, Ron? I said, yes. Where were you yesterday? And I'm like, I'm not going to lie about this. I told her. So she pulled me aside. She's like, don't let that happen again. But she knew. I was like, it turned into a complete drama mess because it's drama kids. So, but she got it. And she was like, I think she appreciated the fact that I was being honest, but super, super cool teacher. So I very much missed her. So.
Yeah, I had a close relationship with her as well. Senior year, I was president of chorus, so I took on a lot that year, not just because of that, but because that was the year that she became vice principal of Middletown High School.
Oh.
So she was both the vice principal and the chorus teacher. So
Wow.
She had kind of double duty. So I did a lot of helping her with the chorus piece of it. If there was something missing in, the day-to-day where she had to go and do some vice principal stuff, in the middle of class, I would have to grab somebody who knew how to play piano and start teaching people their parts.
Wow. All right. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That was interesting for sure. Cool,
So,
Mom.
so tell us a little bit about yourself. What are some of your areas of interest?
Yeah, so I'm Alli Serencko. I was born in Freehold, New Jersey.
I
over
didn't know
the
that. So
years-
you were a New Jerseyan too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was born in New Jersey. I was 2. We moved to North Carolina. I spent 10 years down there. And then I was about 12 when we moved to Delaware. I spent all of the rest of school in Delaware. I graduated University of Delaware with a degree in Italian language and literature. And after Delaware, I went to work at a bank. I worked there for a year and a half, and then I left and moved to Italy. After that, I came home, went back to the bank, and then I got a different job with the bank. They transferred me to Colorado, and I lived there for about 4 years. And I want to say, what was it? 4 months ago, I moved down here to Florida. So now I'm down here.
Wow. You've been bouncing around.
Yeah, bouncing around. Growing up, I was a singer, obviously. I did chorus. I did musicals with Bonnie as well. But I was also a ballerina. I did ballet from 2 years old until about almost 17.
Wow.
So that was a big part of my life. Outside of that, what I do for fun, I love trying new food, new experiences, new drinks. Going to breweries and distilleries and wineries is one of my favorite things to do. I love trying new stuff, especially when it's weird.
Well, you need to try Malort then. That is a strange beverage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't get it in Florida probably, but if you're ever in Chicago, ever come into Illinois, let me know. We'll meet up. It's a Chicago staple. So for sure, it's
Cool.
It's an interesting flavor, that's for sure. So speaking of which, it's actually a really good transition into what are you currently imbibing on right now?
I'm just sipping on a little bit of amaretto. It's one
Love
of my
it.
faves, so I go to it when I need a little comfort, and I figured this may as well be a good time as any.
Absolutely.
And Ron, what are you working on?
I'm going for something really boring again. This is water. What about you, Alex?
Whoa. So every time, I think this might be the first time I'm not having liquor on the show. I knew because we're actually filming this in the afternoon,
Yep.
and we have the Bills game tonight, which we talked about.
Yep.
And I was like, I can't go to straight liquor now, otherwise I'm not gonna remember the fourth quarter.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm drinking Paulaner Hefeweizen.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
I
Very nice
love that.
beer.
I love that Hefeweizen, just like the aroma on it, and Paulaner, they do a really good job with it. So
Yeah.
It's funny, I can connect Hefeweizen too. I was supposed to, we went to Amsterdam.
Mhm.
What was it? I guess this was 2 years ago, right at the start of COVID. And before we went, we were doing all this research on, what kinds of food, what kind of drinks we should be trying, and Hefeweizen was one of them. So we got to try some Hefeweizen in Amsterdam. So that was pretty cool.
Very, very cool.
awesome. Well, very cool. All right, so our next question it's become almost famous with our show, as famous as our show really is, but here's the question for you. We ask all of our guests to name a piece of art that really defines them in some way. And art's a really cool medium because it can really be any medium, honestly. So what piece of art defines you?
You guys sent me out this question, and I was like, "What is this?" But it's a really cool question. It can be taken in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that popped out to me, though, was the birth of Venus. It just speaks to me in a way that a lot of pieces don't. I see the goddess of beauty and love, and she's very much attracting herself in this image. She's attracting attention to herself, but she's not looking at any of the people who are, like oogling over her.
Mm-hmm.
She's looking away, almost as if she's spacing out because she's looking inside of herself instead. There's a lot more introspection going on there, at least my perspective. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an art critic.
Your interpretation is all that matters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I'm kind of at a point in my life where the things I do and the choices I make are more about me instead of other people. And it's something that I've kind of needed for a while. And I feel I feel good about doing the things and choices for me instead of for other people. And I just connected with that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Let me ask you this, because this may or may not tie into the next question. The next question, which is the last question of the Amber Round, we say, hey, what's a way that, obviously COVID's been a terrible thing for so many, but, what's a way that COVID, ideally maybe in a positive way, maybe it's helped you internally focus on something or get a new interest or new hobby. How has COVID, the world of lockdown, how has that influenced or shaped your life? And I'm curious if some of that, what you were just speaking to, has been enhanced through COVID.
Yeah, a little bit. Right when COVID was hitting and the restrictions were starting to be put in place, we were in Amsterdam. Like I was just mentioning about the Hefeweizen, it kind of all connects here. We were in Amsterdam when things started to shut down. We were flying over on the plane, and when we arrived in the airport, I got phone calls and text messages and voicemails from everybody saying, get back on the plane, they're closing everything down. Obviously, it was fine. That's not really how that worked, but we were able to stay for 4 days. We were going on a river cruise on the Rhine. That ended up getting canceled, so we stayed 4 days in Amsterdam. Did a little traveling around, but things were starting to shut down. And then the last day we were there, I had booked a flight to Ireland. We were just going to do a stopover on the way home, my boyfriend and I. We got up a bit late. We were going to head out to go grab some food, and then we heard everyone talking about how the restaurants and everything was closing because of COVID. We luckily were able to find a pizza shop that was just trying to sell everything they had. They weren't closing on time. They closed later than everywhere else. They were just trying to sell everything out. So we got some pizza. I found a convenience store to get us some snacks, and then we went back to the hotel, got on the phone. We went home the next day. Getting home, I found out that my job had also closed while we were away. So we got put back on the phones, contact center type work. I don't do so good with that. I have anxiety, and that extremely aggravated it to the point where I was on short-term disability for a while. So not only did, COVID make everybody think a little bit more about themselves and what they want out of life, but I had a lot of extra time to do that. At that point I was home a lot and not working. So I started a travel blog, to just kind of talk about what I do when I travel and, how being a travel agent has affected my life. And it also reinvigorated my love of travel. Almost more because I couldn't go anywhere.
Right. You realize how much you miss something when you can't do it.
Exactly. Being stuck at home, not being able to go anywhere, really instilled in me that being a travel agent and traveling the world is what I'm supposed to do. And it's part of who I am. And so I worked really hard to try and get my blog up and running. I went, headfirst into more travel agent training classes and certifications and just trying to learn everything I could while no one was going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I had no idea that your blog was, in a way, a direct result of the pandemic. And it's interesting because Ron and I, our podcast, obviously a very different thing, but it was also a direct result of COVID. So it's interesting how, something as horrible as COVID, in some cases, though, is allowed people to kind of to go into maybe a passion or an interest or a creative way that they hadn't previously. So I appreciate you sharing your story on that. I think it's actually really interesting. I mean, I put myself back into March or April of 2020 and no one knew anything. I mean, I remember people were sanitizing their grocery bags, and I remember people telling me that they were baking their mail in the oven for a couple hours, right? And it seems insane now, but that was a thing. That was what people were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting where we're at compared to where we were then.
Yeah, especially like early on, it was also like, okay, well, this will be like what, a month or two? Nah, it's gone on a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
But I guess another follow-up question, I imagine, at least, I don't know about you, but like when I've gone on my own personal trips, it's something where, you enjoy it for what it is, but maybe you don't always do much reflection until later. Just because it's like, okay, that was fun. What's next? And I'm sure some of the pandemic may have factored into that. Do you feel like that gave you some reflection time to be like, well, this was really, really the best possible thing, or these are the things I really miss, that maybe that pandemic light kind of shone on things?
Absolutely. I think it showed me a lot of what I didn't want for my life, as well as the things that I absolutely know that I want now. It gave me the time to sit there and think about what I was going to do with my time beyond moving past the anxiety and, just trying to get through every day with the pandemic being our normal. So I had to figure out what I wanted and move forward with it as best as I could.
Very good. Well, great news.
That is, I was going to say, that's the end round. So you passed the first part.
Woo!
Did it.
Here we go.
I made it.
Very nice. We're still working on we introduced the clapping, but the duration, how excited, are there going to be any hollers and hoots? We need to figure that out still. So anyway, so now that you're past the end round, let's dig a little bit deeper. We introduced a lot of interesting topics and interests of yours that we definitely want to unpack. One of the things, though, that you didn't mention that I do want to touch on, because it's one of the topics that we talked about. I remember the last time we saw each other, we were talking about this before we hit record. We saw each other in Ireland in 2000. I think we said 2016.
2016.
And you were living in Italy, and I was going with another high school mutual friend of ours in Ireland. You met us for a couple days, and I remember you telling me about floating. And I was like, what is this? What sensory deprivation, right? And well, let me just ask you, for those who are unaware, what the heck is that?
I can't even believe you remember that.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. So we're talking, 2016. So this conversation was like 5 years ago. So floating or sensory deprivation is a way to remove the sensory input that your brain takes constantly, 24/7. Even while you sleep, you feel the bed sheets, right? You hear the noises outside, whether or not you're conscious of it or not. Your body's always dealing with sensory input. So one way to do that is to try and remove it, and that allows your brain to relax. People use it for a couple of different reasons. Relaxation is a really big one.
So you go into this. I assume it's like a hot tub type thing. I mean, what is this contraption that you're going through?
Yeah, so there's a few different models of them. There's what they like to call the clamshell. It kind of opens up like this. And you're floating in a pool of salt water. But it's so salty, it's comparable to the Dead Sea. So you are less dense than the water, so you float whether or not you're trying to. The water's going to come up to about here, but not any further. You're buoyant enough that the water's not going to come up any further. And you can just physically let yourself relax. You don't need to hold yourself up. You don't need to tense your muscles. So as you lay there over time, you can move a little bit, loosen up your joints, allow your muscles to relax, and your body can just let go. It's almost kind of like a small way of defying gravity a little bit on your body.
So
go ahead, Ron.
So mentally, I guess the question I'd have for you is where does your brain kind of go? Is it something where it's kind of like meditation, where thoughts and ideas kind of come to you and you kind of have to just be like, that's okay, let it go? Or do you find yourself becoming more introspective into specific areas? Or just what are your thoughts on what's your experience in general?
So there's a lot of places your mind can go, because it's just a blank space, right? It's a complete start over point almost. Because there is nothing physical that is affecting what you're thinking about. The water is skin temperature. So you're not thinking about whether it's hot or cold. You're not touching the bottom. It's probably anywhere from 8 to 12 inches high, so you're not touching the bottom. If you're laying still enough, you're not touching the sides of the tank, right? But so your brain, because you don't have any of those physical distractions, it can go anywhere. One time I got out of the float tank and I had 12 recipes that I wrote down after I got out.
Whoa.
I like to eat. I like to eat and I like to create stuff. One time I got out thinking I might have taken something beforehand, even though I didn't, because I was just so light and floaty and just calm and relaxed. And I was just like, I don't know where I am. I was just totally chill. Other times people will utilize them to get in and try to solve a problem. So they'll purposely think about something in a way that helps them find some sort of solution because they don't have any other distractions of what's going on around them. And yeah, meditation's a big one too, Ron. People will get in purposely for that sole reason of meditating. They'll get in and they'll either do mantras to themselves, focus on their breath work, those kinds of things. So yeah, they're pretty cool.
That's really interesting. So, I mean, my initial thought is this seems like another form of therapy. And maybe it's actually, do people use it in conjunction with a traditional therapist where maybe you're allowing yourself during the floating to really do a lot of introspection and figuring out maybe what you want to work on or what your challenges are. And then in conjunction with a therapist, you could actually know what you want to talk about. I mean, do you know of people or have experiences with like it can be used as a form of therapy?
I don't know if they're using it as a form of therapy in that kind of a way, but I know it's being used in certain studies for research on a bunch of different things. Mental illnesses, PTSD. They're using it for, I'm trying to remember the name of the illness that you're in constant pain. I'm trying to remember.
Just like chronic pain.
Yeah, lots of chronic pain.
Is it fibromyalgia?
Fibromyalgia, yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
They're using that in some fibromyalgia studies as well. So it's cool. I mean, obviously I'm no expert, but some of the things I've seen, there are people coming out saying they don't feel any pain while they're in the tank, which is just mind blowing. So we're trying to, yeah, it's cool.
Well, I think the reason I remember it all these years later is because one, I'd never heard of it then, and I found it fascinating. And then, since then, I live in a city. I've lived in cities, and I have started to see these deprivation tank facilities. I've not used it, but it's funny. Like when I see them, I'm like, I remember being told about this before. Let me ask you a last question on the topic. How often does someone? I know everyone's different, but how often and for how long do people generally do this for? Is this like once a week for an hour? Or is this like, how frequently are people doing this?
It kind of depends. I had access to it a lot more frequently than some would because my boyfriend worked at a place that catered to this, that had float tanks. And I would do about 90 minutes. That tends to be on average the sweet spot for most people where they can settle in and their mind kind of relaxes a good bit. And your brain waves can drop down a little. So you're almost at the point where you're kind of like in a dream state.
Yeah.
But not everyone reaches that, so I don't always talk about that too much, just because you don't want to set a really high standard for some people. Because some people will talk about how they can astral project in these things or whatever, but I don't want to go that far. I just want to say that it's extremely great for relaxation. I use it personally to help with my back pain. It's really great for that. It's really good for meditation and calming, but you can do it anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. Some places will even let you, they'll do challenges. The place my boyfriend worked, they did a challenge. I floated for 4.5 hours.
Whoa.
Wow.
I would be fearful you'd fall asleep. Does that happen?
It's okay though. I mean, you can fall asleep. That point where your brainwaves drop down, it's almost kind of like you are asleep, but you're not.
Yeah.
But even if you do fall asleep, it's okay, because you're not really going to just roll over into the water. And even if you get some of that salt water in your eyes, it's going to burn. You're going to wake up.
Yeah.
So it's not dangerous in any way. I think my boyfriend's record was something like 8.5 hours.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's the coolest, most relaxing thing. My goal is to go and get a massage and then get in the tank.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I bet.
That would be cool.
Would having a drink before help too, or no?
I don't necessarily recommend it, myself, just because, especially for the first time, because you want to get into the tank without having any other distractions or any other altered states. You want to kind of figure out what your mind does on its own. Plus, you just want to make sure that you're at your best when you're getting in the tank.
Gotcha.
Allie, I said that was going to be my last question about this, but I have one more. If you're in for 8 hours, I mean, you're going to have to pee probably. Do you just do it? Do you just go right in the floating state in a little tub?
No, not
Get out?
typically. So, I mean, if you really do have to go while you're in, you get out, you shower off, and then you use the bathroom when you get back in. I don't think he went the whole time. But it's really interesting experience. Getting into the tank, you have to shower off completely. You're getting in naked, no clothes, because that's a distraction, right? Because the
cloth,
touch you, your skin's gonna
float around,
and you're gonna salt log all your clothes because of all the salt in there. And then once you get out, you really got to clean yourself good, because that salt sticks to your skin like nothing.
Wow.
So
That's fascinating.
Any
cool.
last minute advice for somebody first time doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Do not shave within 24 hours beforehand. It'll burn.
Oh.
Okay.
No coffee for at least 4 hours before you get in. I like to not have any kind of caffeine for the 12 hours beforehand, just because it can stick around a little longer than most people think. Come with an open mind, and just be ready to listen to the spiel when they get you in there, because they're going to talk to you a little bit and tell you what's going on.
Sounds good.
Well, with that, let's dip our toes into some travel stuff. Because I want to set up this, kind of the stage for your business that we were talking about. So let's first and foremost talk about your recent moves, your physical moves, where you were in Delaware. You talked about this. You moved to Colorado. You're now in Florida. Can you talk about that transition? And then, of course, I have to ask, what do you miss most about Colorado? What do you miss most about Delaware?
Sure. So I moved from Delaware to Colorado a little over 4 years ago to work for the bank. And it was the first time, other than being in Italy, the first time I was really, really moving away. So it was a very different experience, because I was around somewhere where I didn't know anybody. It was just me and my boyfriend. We moved thousands of miles away from home, and we kind of had to start over. Had to find new friends, had to find new things to do. But we were able to have a lot of fun. I mean, Colorado is an incredibly beautiful state. It's gorgeous. Rocky Mountain National Park is there. We got a National Parks Pass, and we're there all the time. We went to Left Hand pretty frequently. If you guys know Left Hand Milk Stout, that was around the corner. We used to ride our bikes over there.
Oh, that's
cool.
To grab some beers. So that was fun. And we made some friends and did a ton of hiking. Traveled a lot around Colorado. We made it down to Denver here and there. We went to a couple of hot springs locations further down in the San Luis Valley. So yeah, we loved Colorado. And then I was just kind of getting to the point where I needed something new. And I missed the beach a lot.
Sure.
Being landlocked wasn't as fun for me. I love the mountains. I had a lot of fun.
Well, I was going to ask, did you become a skier?
No.
No.
I did not.
But you became a big beer person, which I know Denver, Colorado, that some of the best beer scene in the country.
Absolutely. It is huge for microbrews. So we drank a lot of beer. But I needed something different. And being so far from home was not easy on me. I have a younger sister who now has 2 kids. I've got a younger brother. All of my family is in the Northeast, Delaware and New Jersey for the most part. So I just needed to find somewhere new, and I was able to get a transfer in my job, and we moved out here to Florida. Funny enough, I'm 20 minutes away from one of my uncles who used to live in New Jersey. So I do have a little bit of family here. Yeah. I'm back by the beach, and I'm still having a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Time to start over.
And it's amazing too. I'm sure, like, even if you're not physically in the Northeast with your family that frequently, even just being in the same time zone makes things easier. You know, I'm in Chicago, only 1 hour time zone different, but even then, it's coordinating. It can be difficult sometimes. So I can only imagine when you were in Colorado, same thing.
Yeah, definitely. We were 2 hours behind, and that was difficult on my parents and my grandparents and my siblings and my friends and stuff. Every once in a while, I'd get a phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still asleep because it's still 7 a.m. and I don't go to work until 10 o'clock. Yeah. So, it was hard. And I'm a big family person, so I flew home fairly frequently. And every so often we would have to drive because there were some things at home I needed, or vice versa, I had to bring out. So we would drive. We did that, I think, 3 times. Wow. That was like a 30-hour drive. So I was kind of tired of that too.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to break, but I have to ask before we do. You said you spent a lot of time at I assume the Denver airport.
Yeah.
Do you know about the Denver airport conspiracy theories and all that?
A little bit.
There's this whole belief that there's like this underground bunker that the president of the United States will get flown to if there's like a nuclear fallout. I went down, Alli, one time I just went down a rabbit hole. I spent like 6 hours just like the Wikipedia effect, and there's like, there's all these things. Anyway, anytime I go to the Denver airport, I think about that. Is there this massive underground bunker underneath?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Illuminati was weaved in there somehow.
Totally,
too.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like everyone, they all work together, right? The Illuminati, every secret organization, they all like got a pact together and said Denver Airport.
Yeah.
I mean, what doesn't help though is like those murals. There's some really creepy, weird, out of this world murals, which I think that's one of the reasons why it's like people think that, right? If I understand some of that correctly. There's speculation that those murals have hidden secrets that explain what's going on.
Well,
right?
And then there's also like the airport apparently went like 3x the budget. Don't quote me on that, but it went way more expensive. Took like 4 extra years to build than they anticipated. So there's a lot of like, well, were they working on something else? Like, was something else going on? I don't know. I love conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I heard little bits and pieces about that too. It is a big airport. They have a train that'll take you to each terminal because it's pretty big. And they've been doing a lot of construction on it recently. So yeah, I don't know what's going on down there. I have heard, interestingly enough, or I've seen videos, so who knows if it's true or if it's real or not. You know how people can put videos together. But I have seen that there are apartments in some airport somewhere. I don't know. I saw it online. You know how online gets. Who knows? But
you know what? I think I might know where that is. I think that's Changi Airport in Singapore. I think that there are some apartments that just opened up in there.
So interesting.
Which that would be like that airport's really, really nice. I'd consider living there if if the situation and circumstances worked out.
I guess so, if you're traveling a lot. Anyway,
that's true.
We'll be right back. We're going to talk, when we come back, speaking of travel, we're going to talk more about travel. We're going to talk about our business, being in the world of being a travel agent, and all sorts of good stuff. So we'll be right back.
Hey, it's Ron here. And Alex and I wanted to take a moment first to thank you for being a listener to our podcast. Secondly, I've got a challenge for you. This week, if you could, find somebody who maybe isn't familiar with the show and turn them onto it. We'd appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, welcome back to Between Two Studs. We're hanging out with Alli Serencko, and we were talking about the world of travel. And one of the things that's really, really cool about you is you launched a Mermaid's Compass. Can you explain what exactly that is?
Yeah, so a Mermaid's Compass is my brand that I created for my travel blog. And it's something that took me a lot of time to think through, because I wanted to create something that showed my love of travel, but also had a little magic in it. And I wanted to do a travel blog, but I also wanted it to have a theme to kind of be a little kitschy, just something to catch people's eye. I've always been a little obsessed with mermaids, and who doesn't love a little magic? So brought those two together, my love of magical mermaids and travel, and here we are.
That's really cool. I got to say, obviously all of that included, but what is, or maybe was, your goal of a Mermaid's Compass, and maybe how has it evolved over the last couple of years?
Initially, truthfully, I started a blog years before that. I started a blog when I was in Italy, and I ended up not doing much with it. I wrote a couple of blog posts, and I forgot about it. I wasn't working on it. I just ended up spending the rest of my time in Italy, and not worrying about the blog. Fast forward to COVID time, and like we discussed earlier on in the show, I found my new love of travel, and I wanted to tap back into the blog again. So I created something brand new and went forward with it. I had a couple of goals for that. I wanted to create somewhere to put my thoughts on my travels as I went through them. Describe them to people, show them maybe if they thought it was a little scary, how it's not so scary, but also to hopefully in the long run make a little bit of money off of too. My super life goal is to work from home and be a travel agent and run my blog, so that's part of that as well.
So if you wouldn't mind, could you talk a little bit about what are some of the advantages that people have with working with a travel agent versus trying to do it themselves?
100%. Some of the good pieces of trying to work with an agent are that we know the industry. So if you're confused about where to look, where to go, you can contact one of us and we'll help you. I'm currently working on a trip for an old drama teacher from Middletown, in the Middletown area. I'm working on a trip for her, and she contacted me because her and her girlfriends just they started to look and they got confused. They didn't know what they were looking for. They didn't know where they wanted to look. They just got stuck in the weeds and felt like they were drowning with it. So what I did was I sent a questionnaire out to her and the girls and had them tell me what they wanted out of their trip. And then me having the expertise that I do, knowing the different countries, the different islands, the different types of resorts that are out there, the different types of trips that people can take. I took what they wanted and I applied that to what I know, and I sent them out some sample itineraries, and we went from there.
See, I think that's really cool because I think a lot of people are intimidated by travel because they want to travel, but they don't even know where to begin. And so I almost find that because they don't know where to begin, they just don't do it at all. Before you know it, it's like, when's the last time you went on vacation? Well, I want to, but I just don't know where to get started.
Absolutely. We also can create different kinds of relationships with the resorts and the suppliers that we work with. So we're able to know about certain sales sometimes before they're shown to the public. Sometimes we get things that aren't given to the public at all. And sometimes with creating the relationships between the resorts and the different suppliers themselves, we might be able to squeeze out a little bit of extra stuff for our clients too.
Does a Mermaid's Compass focus on any specific type of vacation or any specific region, or are you very broad in general in the different types of vacation services that you make available to your clients?
I kind of do everything.
Okay.
I've sent clients on cruises. I've sent people on their honeymoon to the Caribbean. I sent a family to Italy. I kind of do a little bit of everything. I would like to focus a little on honeymoons just to make it a little easier on myself, but truthfully, it doesn't matter. I'm willing to whatever the client wants, what they're looking for, and to help them out as best I can, because that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to get your client what they want.
And I have to imagine, Alli, one of the most exciting or rewarding parts of your job is seeing after the trip, probably seeing pictures, seeing photos, and maybe even just saying, Alli, we had such a good time. We did this. Thank you so much. I have to imagine that's incredibly
It's the best. I love that part. Getting text messages or emails from people while they're on their trip talking about how much fun they're having. It just makes me feel like not only am I doing my job, but I'm doing something bigger than maybe I ever thought I could. I'm doing something good for other people. I'm not just making money. I'm doing something good for other people, and I love that. Funny enough, I didn't get to get those text messages. Well, I got a few. But I actually met up with a client on their honeymoon.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Yes. So we moved here to Florida at the end of September, and I was sending a client to Disney for their honeymoon in October. We have friends from California who came to go to a wedding at Disney. It just so happened that they crossed over the same month and the same day in the same park.
Wow.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So not only did we get to see our friends from California that we haven't seen in a couple years now, I also got to meet up with my client and make sure that they were having a great time.
That's really cool. And I have to imagine, Alli, another thing that really makes a travel agent so special or valuable to a traveler is when traveling, things happen. Right? There's always issues. You just have to accept that's part of the world of traveling. There are things that are unanticipated. I have to imagine it's got to be rewarding, or at least peace of mind, to say, if something does happen, if there's a plane that gets delayed or whatever, I know who I can reach out to help me out.
Absolutely. When you book something through Expedia or through Groupon, or you go through Airbnb, you don't have somebody in your corner able to fight for you if something bad happens or if something goes wrong. If you have a travel agent, you call them, because they generally know what direction to go in. They know who to contact. They know what to try to do to resolve the issue. We also usually encourage people to get the travel insurance as well. Because yes, you have us in your corner, but we're also not miracle workers. So we can call the suppliers and we can call the companies and fight for you, but it might also come down to having the travel insurance too. Because if something goes wrong and you can't go on your trip, having that travel insurance is going to be a big help. I can't really get you your money back if you don't have that travel insurance.
Yeah. Well, and I think that leads to the next question we had, which is, I know you have so much really interesting and insightful blog posts and travel tips that are on your website. I'd love to maybe give us a sneak peek of some of those do's and don'ts. I assume one of the do's would be get travel insurance.
Absolutely. One of the do's is get travel insurance, because you just never know what's going to happen. Obviously, COVID is the epitome of you never know what's going to happen, right? So get the travel insurance. Another one would be if you're going international, make sure that you bring cash in that country's currency before you get there, because the fees add up when you're going to ATMs trying to pull cash out. International fees are a pain in the ass. And they add up quickly. So to save yourself some money and some hassle, make sure to bring some of that. And on top of that, don't do what I did and make sure that you keep all of your cards and your important information in separate different places. When I was in Italy, I left my purse on the bus. And it had all of my cards and my passport in it. So now I know to never do that again. I got them all back. It was a miracle. I don't know what happened, but whatever was looking out for me, I got everything back. Nothing was stolen.
Wow.
But, so when you travel, make sure that you separate cash, cards, and your passport and put them all in different places. A little bit of cash and cards in your carry-on. A little bit of cash and cards in your check bag. A little bit on your person. Just to make sure that if anything gets lost or something gets stolen, you're not completely shit out of luck.
Well, that's a really good point, because I've done a fair bit of international travel in my life. Fortunately, I've never lost anything, never been pickpocketed. But to be honest with you, even as someone who's traveled a lot, if that all got stolen, I don't even know where to start. I guess I try to find my embassy, the U.S. embassy. Like, I don't even know where to begin.
Exactly. Start with the embassy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, if you are traveling internationally and you're going to be there for more than just a few days, it might be good to just check in with the embassy. You can log your travel with the embassy when you travel. I don't think a lot of people know that. You can log your travel with them so that they know that you're in the country.
That's a great tip. I was an expat for a year and never thought to do that, honestly. So, but I probably should have, in hindsight.
What would be the advantage of that? Is that just so if there actually ends up being an issue, they already have you tracked as like you're staying here?
Absolutely. Yep. They'll know that you're here, but then if there's an issue with local police or if you lose your passport, they have it on record already that you're in the country. So that's one less step of trying to verify who you are to figure out how to get you home.
I'm sure probably another part of that, too, would be, like, for instance, with the pandemic, as that was escalating, if there's local things being done or if the U.S. government's like, hey, you probably should get home, that type of thing they could help facilitate, make sure that you're good. So
Absolutely. Because if they don't know you're there, there's not as much they can do to help you until you notify them that you're there.
So you mentioned earlier about trying to help detract from some of the scariness that can sometimes happen with traveling and going international. What are some of your tips on that specifically?
So some people don't travel purposely because they're either comfortable where they are or they're uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. I say to that, don't let your fear prevent you from seeing the rest of the world. There's so much more out there than just your backyard. And I think that it's really important to not only obtain some new experiences, but also learn how the rest of the world lives, because everybody lives differently. So a tip for that is to just remember that you live your life the way you live it, but other people live it differently. And it would benefit you to learn that.
Well, I think it's a really good point you bring up. And I think Ron and we may have chatted about this on a previous episode, but I find it fascinating that Americans, we are willing to spend so much money on an education, right? How much money we go into student loan debts on for a formal education. Yet one of the best forms of education in the world is to travel and to interact with people with different cultures that it might seem weird, but in reality, they would see us as weird, right? And so you can learn from one another. And I think in my lifetime, some of the best experiences I've had in understanding other people and how to interact with others in the world is by traveling.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite parts is talking to the local people and seeing how they do things. You go to a popular city like Rome, for example, and there's going to be big restaurants all over the place, and they'll be busy with tourists. But if you go down a side street or you pop into a bar in the corner, get to know some of the locals, ask them what are the best places to go and see, because those are going to be the things that are more worthwhile.
That's a great tip, because I feel like I've seen that personally in my own experience where you definitely know that there are certain areas that are very touristy, and I know like some places it's like people almost go just to get a photo, just be like, yeah, I've been here. but there's so much that's off the beaten path. And I also feel like when you go off the beaten path too, not only do you get a more genuine experience, but I think the people serving and working with you, they're also that much more appreciative, because if you go to the same touristy thing, they're always just like, tourists. And you get off the beaten path and they're like, wow, you came here to try this out, to see this, and to actually get an understanding about what an authentic experience is. A good example I can think of for that for me was in Santorini. We went to some of the areas of the island that weren't quite as popular and had a great time. But great tip.
Absolutely, yeah. I remember when I was living in Italy, I lived in the Siena area, and there is a place called Piazza del Campo in Siena. It's the place where they hold a horse race they do it twice a year. It's a big thing in Siena. People live and die by their mascots, but
yeah, isn't that the place where they do like the knights, like the jousting and that, or something like that? Or am I thinking some other place?
Not that one, but it is another one of the cities in Tuscany, so you're close.
Okay.
But so when they're not in the middle of a horse race, it's shops and restaurants, and there's great restaurants there. I ate really well there, but the side streets have other things down them too. And I went to a restaurant down one of the side streets, and that was probably the best pasta I had the whole time I was there.
Wow. That's really cool.
And it was cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so Alli, you have all these tips and do's and don'ts, but I was on your blog website and obviously your travel tips, and there is a ton of really good content in there. How do you decide what to write about? I mean, is it more or less just interacting with customers and realizing, this is clearly an issue and I should have a post about it, or what's your inspiration?
That's a great question. Some of it is that, talking with my clients and the questions that they ask me. Some of it is things I see in Facebook groups, other travel groups. People ask questions about it. What do I do this? How do I find the best this? So that's part of where that comes from. I guess the biggest piece of it is what I went through, what I do when I travel, and then the lessons that I learn as I'm going along. Trying to figure out where to stay, the best places to eat. Some of those are going to come up soon. How to talk to a travel agent, like how to use one. What are they for? Because I've had people ask me that all the time. I tell people I'm a travel agent, and they're like, well, what do you really do?
Okay.
It's almost the first question that I'm always asked when I tell people I'm a travel agent. They're like, but is there a point? Why do you still exist? And I'm like, okay.
Gonna be one of those.
It's just good to put it out there and to just let people know the how and the why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and a lot of that is gained through experience, right? Someone who actually has lived internationally and has the experiences that you have. My next question, I have to ask this. I'm not a huge Disney person. I'm not. But I'll explain why I'm asking this question. Ron has a daughter who has been asking about going to Disney. He lives in Georgia. It's going to happen. Simultaneously, and it won't be part of the same trip, but Hannah, my wife, she's very much, hey, at some point, maybe we should do Epcot, right? Just like drink around the world, right? An adult, experience of Disney, right? And I know you recently had a blog post where you talked about your Disney travel experience as an adult. So can you talk about that and maybe at a high level, think about the two lenses, right? Where Ron's thinking about with his daughter and then me with my wife, right? Like what would you envision if we were to come to you as clients?
I would absolutely love to talk about that. I love Disney. So I guess I'll start with my first Disney experience. I was 14. So I didn't get quite as the kid experience as I would have liked because I was a little bit older. And I didn't like roller coasters, and some of the rides were either too young for me or too much. So as a 14-year-old kid in that space, I didn't have as much of an experience as I would have liked. As an adult, it is so much fun. Not only do you have the drinking around the world in Epcot, which is so much fun, but you get to sort of experience the different cultures in Epcot, right? You know, because they have all the different countries. So that is really cool, especially to show your kids. It gives them a way to tap into that without having to travel, but also it just shows them a glimpse of what the rest of the world could look like. It lets them know, hey, these are the other things that exist out there. What do you think about that? So I love that piece of it. And that's just Magic Kingdom. That's just Epcot. That's just one part. When we went in October, we were only going to go one day. We went to Epcot, and we both had the next day off. So I was like, I'm going to Magic Kingdom tomorrow, John. I don't know what you're doing. So we bought the tickets. We went to Magic Kingdom the next day and had a blast. My boyfriend did not grow up with Disney. It is not his thing, but he had a lot of fun. To the point where he said he was willing to get the annual pass because I want to go all the time. And of course, you know, Disney comes with its own set of tips and tricks and ways to save money and ways to just go out and have a blast and not worry about it. But it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of rides. There's the character experiences are still there. Given COVID, they have separation, but you can still go up and take pictures with them. You're just a little bit separated, and you can ask them questions. And they have the cavalcades, the little mini parades that they have that go through all the time. And at the end of every night, they have firework displays that go off. And they are some of the most fantastic things that you could see. They're incredibly magical to the point where it makes you a little emotional. So it's a great experience for an adult, too.
A follow-up question to that. So I've asked some friends that have gone to Disney into now it's, I guess, pandemic-ish still time frame. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've heard from them is that while you can still go have a great time, it's maybe not the most ideal for first-time visits, which has been one of the considerations for my daughter. Do you think that that's still true, or do you say, you know what, just go, you'll have a good time anyway? What are your thoughts?
At this point, they've removed a lot of the restrictions. So you don't have to wear a mask. There are I shouldn't say there are no 6 feet rules. They still want you to keep 6 feet apart in the lines while you wait, type of a thing. There are some attractions that are still closed, although I think a couple of them just reopened within the last month or so. So there are some things here and there that if you want 100% everything, you might not get it. But I don't think that should dissuade you from going because they're continually opening new pieces. They're reopening certain dining options. They're reopening some of those larger attractions that they've been closed the whole time. So at this point, I would say go ahead and go.
Ron's just looking for an excuse not to take his daughter. Ron, your daughter has been asking to go for how many years now? You got to take her.
Yeah, but, I mean, you've been asking me to come visit you at some point where you live, and
That's true.
I've yet to do that either, so...
Yeah.
At least I'm not just mutually keeping it to you, so...
Yeah.
But I will go.
The key with bringing kids is you just kind of got to tell them before you leave, we can't buy everything.
Good advice.
That's kind of the only thing. Because obviously it's Disney and you're in the park, so everything's going to be more expensive from food to a t-shirt. So... you know, keep that in mind too, but there's going to be some tips and tricks. There's a new blog coming out that should help with some of that stuff too.
Cool.
Well,
I look
in
forward to
that
it.
same vein, talking about new blog, new stuff coming, Alli, what's going on in your world? Tell us more about your business and how we can follow you, how we can keep in touch with you, and anything going on, especially now. It's at least here in Chicago, it's cold. I'm looking for places to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business, a Mermaid's Compass, that's my blog, but I work through a travel agency, a travel group called World Travel Specialists, and we have some pretty cool specials going on right now. We've got Dubai in July of 22. We've got Thailand in September, New Orleans in October, the Maldives in October, Halloween in Romania. I am seriously considering going myself. So we've got some really cool specials. going on right now. And then if you guys want to follow me, I am on most social media. I have Facebook and Instagram at A Mermaid's Compass. My Twitter is at Mermaid's Compass. And my TikTok is Alli Serencko Travel Agent. If you guys want to get a hold of me, you're ready to start planning that next travel journey, you can send me an email at alli@amermaidscompass.com or send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook, and we'll get you started.
Awesome. And we will absolutely post all of that on our LinkedIn, or sorry, not our LinkedIn, on our Instagram page as well as our website. So then that way we can follow you. And that's awesome.
Don't forget, too, we'll post that in the episode description as well. So go down and click that link. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was a ton of fun. And as always, great to see you, Stud.
Yes, great to see you as always. With that, we'll wrap up the episode of Between Two Studs.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.